Hey everybody, News Now Wyoming here. Should be a relatively quick video. I'm going to do, it is to talk about search and seizures. If they've got an arrest warrant, when can they arrest you in your home? This goes in conjunction with both the Cheyenne cases that I've posted here lately on if they violated their rights. Remember the one, they were there for a welfare check. And then they didn't like the answers he was providing, and so they just say, "Fine, this is over." And they reach and grab him, and he runs back into the house. He was standing in the threshold of the door, and then he goes in. Is that a search? Is that crossing the threshold of the house? They never said you are under arrest. So when they did go in there to grab him, they weren't placing him under arrest. Therefore, because they didn't say they were. Therefore, I would argue that, according to some of this case law here, it was an illegal entry of the home. Then the other case I just posted today, where the gentleman says that they entered his house without a warrant and arrested him, or without permission of his wife or him, and I made an assumption that maybe they had an arrest warrant. I don't know, you guys. I don't know any of the details of it, of why they were there in the first place. I only know what was pled. So let's take a look here. Again, this should be relatively quickly. I've got a meeting for work here in about 10 minutes. My goal is to be done in 8 minutes. You could take these things as true, or you can look up the citations yourselves and find out exactly what they say word for word. These are summations put together by this law firm, Don Samuel Garland and Samuel and Noah PC. So they are trial attorneys. I'm going to take what they say as true unless I am provided evidence what their summaries are true, unless provided evidence that they are misrepresenting what the courts ruled, which I highly doubt. Kirk versus Louisiana Supreme Court from 2002. Supreme Court summarily reversed a Louisiana Supreme Court decision that held that a warrantless entry into a house in order to arrest the occupant was permissible. Pursuant to Payton versus New York, 1980, either a search warrant or an arrest warrant is required to enter a home to make an arrest, assuming there are no exigent circumstances. Exigent meaning emergency. New York v. Harris, another U.S. Supreme Court, 1990. Police violated Payton versus New York, and we're going to see this quite a bit, by entering the defendant's apartment and arresting him without a search warrant or an arrest warrant. While in the apartment, the defendant made an incriminating statement. He was then removed from the apartment and made additional incriminating statements. The Supreme Court holds that the statements made outside the apartment need not be suppressed. They were all pursuant to the arrest, so, okay, arguable. Nora, Ninth Circuit, not Supreme Court. So if you are in the Ninth Circuit, this would apply to you. If you are not in the Ninth Circuit, such as me here in Wyoming, this would not apply to you. Police observed the defendant with a gun in his hand on the street and later on his porch. He retreated into his house. The police ordered him to come out of the house. This was improper. The police need a search warrant or an arrest warrant to enter a house or to order someone to exit the house. They can't even tell you to come out of the house without a warrant. They can ask you, but they cannot demand it of you. Possession of a loaded gun is at most a misdemeanor in California. The police officer had no basis for believing the defendant posed a danger or was committing a felony by possessing the gun. U.S. v. Stokes, Second Circuit. Again, won't apply to you if you are anywhere else in the United States besides the Second Circuit. Police had reason to believe that the defendant was responsible for a homicide, but did not seek an arrest warrant for strategic reasons, having to do with the state law that would prohibit any questioning after the issuance of an arrest warrant. So they've got a state law that says they can't question you after you get an arrest warrant. Pretty good law, right? So they circumvent that. They went to his hotel room and entered the open door. His door was wide open and they entered it. Is that is that a violation of your rights? Can cops just enter an open door in a hotel room? While handing him his pants to get dressed, the police saw a gun in a duffel bag. The Second Circuit held that the entry was unlawful. If the police had an arrest warrant, entry to the hotel room may have been permissible, but absent an arrest warrant, entering the room was not permissible, and only an arrest in a public place would have been permissible, absent consent to enter. The government also failed in its efforts to invoke the inevitable discovery doctrine. Okay, we'll skip that because we're short on time. U.S. v. Hill. This is a Fourth Circuit. The information known to the police was not sufficient to support a reasonable belief that the target of arrest warrant was present in the residence that they entered. There were also no exigent circumstances to justify the entry into the residence, despite apparent damage to the door frame that the police observed when they arrived. So they can see that the house had been broken into, and that's not an exigent circumstance. In the Fourth Circuit. Interesting. I would disagree with that second part. But it's all for the defendant's rights. U.S. v. Wera. Oh, I do want to make note here. When I say this doesn't apply to you, other circuits may look to this for guidance. They won't look to it for precedent. They won't use it as they have to follow it. But they will look at this case law from other circuits in the absence of them having more precedent in their own circuits. They'll look at it and decide if it applies in their circuit. Police had a warrant to First Circuit. Arrest an individual and had information that the person was seen at a particular residence. Police went there, asked permission to enter, which was denied, and then entered without permission. The target of the warrant was not there, but the defendant was. He was frisked, so they searched his house, or they entered the house. They had an arrest warrant for somebody else, and they searched him, and they found a gun. Is that proper? The First Circuit held that the entry was unlawful because the information known to the police did not amount to a reasonable belief the target of the arrest was within. Because the officers entered unlawfully, there was no lawful basis to frisk the defendant, and the gun found in his possession should have been suppressed. In Hardin, 6th Circuit, 2008. They considered but decided not to decide. Yeah. If they didn't decide anything, then let's not look at it. Reeves, 2008, 10th Circuit. Police repeatedly knocked on the defendant's motel door after calling him on the phone numerous times. They pounded on the door at least 20 minutes. This amounted to de facto arrest because it occurred at the defendant's motel room was unconstitutional in the absence of a search warrant. The fact the officers remained outside is not critical. The defendant had been inside and was clearly under the belief that he was required to come out of the house. That's again another one of those, you need to have a warrant in order to make somebody step outside, right? So to make them stay inside their house as well, or also would require a warrant. Nugent, 11th Circuit, 2007. Payton requires a search warrant or an arrest warrant before the police may enter a house to arrest an occupant. Santana, however, holds that if a defendant is standing in the open doorway, he may be arrested. What if the defendant opens the door in response to police knocking? May he be arrested without a warrant? So the 11th Circuit holds an arrest in this situation violates Payton. You knock on the door, he opens it. Is he in the doorway? Not according to the 11th Circuit. In Quamps, 9th Circuit, police want to arrest a person in his home. An arrest warrant or a search warrant is needed to enter the home. However, if the defendant opens the doors and is standing in the threshold, the police may arrest him. In this case, the defendant lived in a small trailer and opened the door while still on his bed. He was immediately told he was under arrest. The defendant's act of opening the door while still on his bed did not qualify as standing in the threshold, and an arrest sans warrant was not valid, and any fruit must be suppressed. So they didn't actually have an arrest warrant. They just wanted to arrest him. So they did not have enough reason to enter the house to arrest him, and that's what they did. U.S. v. Flowers, 10th Circuit, 2003. Generally, in order to arrest someone in his home, they need a warrant to gain entry. In Santana, we're going to skip that paragraph. In this case, the police knocked on the door, and the suspect handed a bottle of wine through a hole, wrong hole, next to the door. This conduct was not sufficient to invoke Santana, and the police could not order him to exit the house without a warrant or to enter the house without a warrant. The evidence they observed in the house, guns and more liquor, should have been suppressed. Okay. Albrechtsen, Ninth Circuit, armed with an arrest warrant, they knocked on his motel door, and when the defendant answered the door, the police barged in. So he opens the door and they barge in. This was an unlawful entry because the arrest warrant could have been executed in the doorway without entering the premises. The government waived the argument that the entry might have been justified as a permissible protective sweep. Alright, you guys, so this does keep going here, a couple more, but I do have to get going. So this is what it means, why an arrest warrant is so important. If they don't have one, what are the probable causes? When can they enter the home? When can't they open the home? I hope this was helpful for you. And if so, please make sure you hit like and subscribe. Leave your comments below. Thank you.